Hello, so this is a style of video I don't normally do, and it's basically one with an appeal for information, as in, I've got this, I don't know much about it, and it might be actually fairly rare. I'm not interested in selling it or anything, but it's just one of those things where, you know, when you pick something up thinking it's going to be a very generic item and it's not. So this is a Radiac Survey meter Type N106A. So for a little bit of background, Radiac Survey meters were the sort of name that America, Canada and Britain used for their radiation detecting equipment. Radiacs for basically everything in that series were generally called Radiacs, whether they be Geiger counters, ion chambers, you know, calculator type devices. And this is definitely almost a spin-off, I can tell, of the avometer style portable Radiac series that Britain used, because Britain definitely used the big Radiac Mark IIs, which are now updated as MD3s and now retired, which are basically the ion chamber dose unit that went from 0 to 300 Roentgen. And we also had the contamination meter Mark I, which was a really bulky thing that only did basically 0 to 10 milliroentgen per hour, so essentially useless for its size. So this is I've at least got the box for it. It is an EAL Instruments Division, Burgess Hill, England, so only in there, Radiac Survey Meter Type N106A. So there's some info on it there, but that's basically it. No instructions or anything came with it. So obviously I know what the function of a unit like this is, because it is just a Radiac Survey meter. So how these work is, obviously you flick them on, you do a battery test. I can do that bit because that bit takes a D-cells. Then you turn it on. Then how it would work is underneath, I've got it unscrewed at the moment to show you the inside in a minute, there would be your high tension section there, where it took an obsolete battery for basically powering the ionisation chamber. Now sadly, even with my bench, you know, transformer where I can put anything up to like 70 volts into something and how many ever amps I want, I can't seem to get this to power, so it's probably used some weird obsolete thing or something's not working in there. So anyway, that's what it would look like on top. That would be your press to calibrate button, which doesn't seem to do much, but again it might require the high tension in there. Then there was a zeroing and, you know, electric frequency. So basically all the calibration controls are on the top there. So how this would work, if I open it up, that's just the base bit, quite simple. That doesn't really do much, as you can see, that's just to protect this. So here's the unit itself. So you've got a really interestingly shaped ionisation chamber there. That bit had a strontium-90 check source in there. I've taken it out for safety reasons, I now keep it in a safe. But lots of these old Geiger counters and ion chambers used to come with strontium-90 check sources. Although weirdly of this one, I can't see any way of adjusting it from the outside. Because with most of these things you either have a check source, you know, it next to a check source or not. So with this one I don't know if it was just one so it would basically tell the device if it was working, because the strontium-90 would mess with, you know, something in there to tell you if it was working. So basically you have this that would have been originally screwed down properly. It was one of those things, unfortunately, the first time I opened this lots of screws fell out and it's never sat properly since, although it does seem to still work to a degree. And there's your ionisation chamber you can see in there, so it's a very weird cylindrical shaped one. So that's really all there is to see with that. I'll just let you see that for some different angles, but yeah, the main point of information really I wanted to know about this thing was, you know, did anybody know absolutely anything about them? Because it's, you know, I know what the avometers were. I bought this expecting it to be an avometer a while ago, and it obviously wasn't, because it, you know, it has the non-linear scale that goes from 0 to 100 Roentgen per hour. It says Electronic Associates Limited on the thing, you know, front, but I assume that's what the EAL means, Electronic Associates Limited. So it's similar to an avometer, and it's got an MOD sticker on there. You know, but it'd just be interesting to get some information about one of these, really, because it's one of those devices that, you know, I can't find any documentation on a lot of the civil defence sort of Geiger counter websites. This was probably a Royal Observer Corps one, as opposed to the British Army, but I don't know, because a lot of the gear mix sort of between the two, where, you know, it could be used by both, and, yeah. So, it definitely looks very similar to some of the meters in the Avo series range, like, you know, Avo Mark IIs, Mark IIIs, Mark IV, Mark V, Radiac Survey meters, but yeah, this thing is definitely its own unique thing to a degree, so that's what makes this interesting to me. is you think looking at it, it's an avometer, and that's what I thought when I bought it, and then I found out that, unlike the avometers, I can't find anything out about this particular model. Now, it could be that it is just literally an avometer mark whatever, just with a different brand on it and some labels changed around, but I thought it was just a very interesting thing at least to document in a video, because I had not seen any web pages where even the real sort of, you know, people who were really into collecting British civil defence sort of era stuff had any of these. So, you know, its function was you turn it on, you can do a battery test, then it's on. There's a press to cal button that would have basically, I think, just short-circuited it, so you could check that the needle swung across a bit like the circuit check on a sort of US CDV 715, 720 type thing. And then that was it. You could adjust the electric, you could adjust the calibration from the top, and the idea was that when you entered a field of gamma ionising radiation, maybe neutrons, I don't know by the shape of that chamber, the needle would move. But, as said, can't find much information out about them online, so if you know anything about these, please leave a comment. But, as said, the closest I can find to it is the avometer range of Radiac Survey meters, so maybe this was just one made by a different company, as said, EAL, you know. But I'm going to give it one more attempt off camera, and if it works I'll put it on the video of trying to power it on with my variable voltage transformer. But I think for all sort of reasons and purposes this one's obsolete, doesn't work anymore, but it is an interesting piece of history to have, you know. But as said, if you know anything about these, please leave a comment, because I couldn't find any documentation online other than a couple of, you know, past listing pages where people had sold these at this number, anything about these ones, you know, compared to all the other civil defence gear.